Firing Monday here on the Birds 365 JAKIB Media YouTube show. You've got John McMullen and Jody McDonald hanging with you. All right, he's got better color than us, but I wouldn't exactly say he's.
I was expecting tremendous tan.
Midsummer
now,
color.
For me, it's tremendous. But
you stay inside. You take all the rides when you were down there in Disney. What do you do with yourself this week down in Florida, Kracz?
I put a lot of sunblock on. I'll tell you that.
There we go. That's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, and wore a hat. So
there we go.
you know, back in the day, you would have, you know, I would have been, you know, some bronze goddess or god, I should say.
No, goddess, you got it right. Yeah. Did you have the big bucket hat on?
I did not. I just had a ball cap on, regular straight up ball cap. You know, down there, spring training's going on, so tried to blend, you know, as much as I could.
Yeah, that's happening. All right, Eddie. An hour from 10 minutes from now, an hour from now, 2 hours from now, when will we have the social media, and that's my projecting a little bit here, announcement as to whether Jason Kelce will be playing in the 2023 season for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Oh, you think it's going to happen today? I think you'll make that announcement?
I'm asking. I don't know nothing, so I'm asking you if you'd like to speculate with us here. Will we know before Birds 365 starts all over again in 20-something hours? Will it be before? Will it come down at 10:04 like Diana Rossini last Friday going, oh, by the way, Eagles have given Darius Slay a chance to work out a contract, a trade with any other team? Are we going to get the same stiff job we always do? As soon as the show's over, there's a massive Eagle announcement, and we find out whether the Eagles Hall of Fame center is staying or not.
Yeah, I think, you know, the Eagles are kind of in a holding pattern in general, in my opinion, with free agency. You know, they're trying to bring back some of their guys, and they're going to have to wait to see, you know, how some of these players' markets develop. But with Kelce, I think it's a done deal. I think he's coming back, and I think the Eagles may already know this in some form. He's had opportunities to already tell them. I think, you know, when Kelce talks about retirement, he always says he wants to do it in a big way that people will know that he's retiring, kind of like the way he was at the championship parade back in 2018 when he wore the Mummers costume. He kind of indicated that people will know he'll make a big deal out of his retirement. And I thought there was a chance that if he was going to do it, it would have happened somehow. They would have worked it into Saturday Night Live with his brother hosting. They would have found a way to do it, and that would have been a big stage for him to make that announcement.
Oh, that's true.
But it didn't happen. So I think the Eagles know he's coming back. I think they're planning as if he's coming back, and we just haven't gotten the announcement yet because it's not him retiring. That's the bigger story, really, is if he's going to retire. And right now, I think he's coming back, and I think the Eagles know it.
Yeah, and he's got the podcast to worry about, so he'll probably announce it on his podcast with Travis. I thought maybe last week, but I think you're right, Ed. I think Howie knows, and that's the more important part for planning purposes as we get closer to the new league year. But we'll see how it shakes out. They were together in Indianapolis. Howie was doing the podcast. I think he's got some information on that, but. When it comes to the cornerbacks, we got news on both fronts. As Jody mentioned, Diana Rossini broke that the Eagles are allowing Drew Rosenhaus to seek a trade for Darius Slay. James Bradberry, as you wrote over at SI, was on, I think, CBS saying, hey, the Eagles, said, hey, please let us have a chance to match any potential contract. I take it as, hey, it's not much different. The Eagles need to work out an extension. They're essentially saying with Slay, hey, go see if other teams are willing to offer you more. In the case of Bradberry, it was always going to be, what's your market value? If it's 12, 13 million, yeah, we'll bring you back. If it's 17 million, probably not. Do you think much has changed on the cornerback front?
The Slay news I thought was pretty interesting. I know the Eagles would like to restructure that deal. Let's face it, the Eagles have to restructure that.
Yeah.
They can't bring him back at the number he's set to count against the salary cap, 26+ million. And this might have kind of been a last resort. Slay has a lot of leverage here. in how he handles his contract situation. So the Eagles are probably like, well, you know what? Go out and see if you can find a trade, see if someone will deal for you, and then you'll get a true gauge of what your market value is. And if someone's willing to pay what we're willing to accept, then, we'll let you go. Slay came out and said he doesn't want to be traded. Of course, he wants to finish his career with the Eagles, but he understands that, it's a business. And if he can't get that done, he'll go elsewhere. But we'll see what elsewhere looks like and how much people value Darius Slay. I think the Eagles should bring him back. I think, he's a number one cornerback still, even though he admitted to kind of wearing down at the end of last season. It's a long year. Maybe he understands now what it takes to prepare his body and his mind better for the rigors of a 17-game schedule. But he's still out there recruiting players. I think I saw a tweet earlier this morning of him sending something out to Adam Thielen, the wide receiver. Hey, come on over here. We're winning.
He's still a team leader, man. People don't realize
the Eagles and him are going to get something done. I really do. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I don't think the market will be as robust as maybe Slay thinks it will be. A 32-year-old cornerback, 10 years in the league now. And the Eagles are going to do their best to keep him. And I think they'll find a way to do that.
All right. I'm going to be rain on the parade guy here. And this, again, hypothetical only. They can't bridge the gap. The Slay wants this extension at this number with guaranteed dollars, percentage-wise. The Eagles get to reduce the cap number, which they desperately want to do. But the divide is too big, and Slay's not compromising, and the Eagles won't go further. And we're sitting here a month from now, and Darius says, I'm planning on showing up for camp. See you then, guys. And the agent and he hang up. What did the Eagles do? If they can't get something done, we just continue to, they'll get something done until they don't. And if they don't, then it becomes a real easy choice for the Eagles. It's A or B. There's no C involved. A, they live with the god-awful cap hit, and he plays one more year under the current deal. Or B, they cut him, and they add the $5 million back in. Not a lot when you're talking 21 dead million cap dollar figure, but they would get 5 back in some clearance, but then they have to replace Slay. Which is it? Does he play on the one-year deal, or did the Eagles cut him? If those are the only two options.
Well, if you designate him a post-June 1st cut or you wait until June 1st, the salary cap savings is greater than it would be previous to June 1st. So that doesn't help the Eagles in the short term, of course, because you still have to carry, I think, that number through to June 1st. But they could release him just based on, it's an $8 million dead money hit, but it's a $17 million savings against the salary cap coming up on June 1st, which could be significant. There still could be players out there that would interest Howie Roseman. We saw it with James Bradberry last year. He came in June. We saw it with
only the first 2 days matter, Ed. Only the first 2 days matter.
I know. I don't think there's going to be a lot of action from the Eagles standpoint the first 2 days. I think you're going to lose guys in the first 2 days, of course, but I'm not sure what they're going to be adding on in those first days, maybe kind of a low-level move. Last year we saw him add Hassan Reddick, I think, on the first day. Big contract. That was their splurge, and then they sat tight, and they just played the long game and waited and chose their spots to make their moves. We could see that again this year, but as far as Slay goes, I'll tell you, that's a tough call. They may end up cutting him after, once June 1st arrives, that money. And then they'll kind of know that that's the plan, and Darius will know, or Slay will know the plan as well. And then the Eagles are going to have to, figure out a way to cover up for him not being on the team, and whether that's in the draft or, you try to bring back James Bradberry. I think Bradbury's not going to find a marketplace for $17 million, like you said, John. Maybe $12 million, but that even might be too high for the Eagles to go. So it's certainly a predicament for the Eagles. But Slay, I would probably end up cutting him after June 1st if he doesn't want to play ball. And then, you're going to have to find a way to replace him at some point leading up to that.
We asked this from Paul Domowitz earlier, so I'm going to ask you. If you had your choice, just said Kracz, and you could have one of the corners back, but not both, which one would you rather have, Slay or Bradberry?
Yeah, that's a good question. Slay is a little older, right? He's 2 years older.
Yeah.
Bradberry had a really solid year. Both players to me are good leaders in their own way. So I would probably go on the side of age and go with Bradberry at 30 versus Slay at 32. And admittedly, Slay, like I said, wore down. So, I would probably go with Bradberry 2 years younger. You can maybe get him for 2 or 3 years if that's the route you choose to go. And then he's Slay's age by the time it comes to releasing him or moving on from him.
All right, staying in the defensive backfield, the Eagles, again, this is just Jody Mack's reading, not necessary fact. I think the Eagles leaked information that they will target CJGJ. They're making him a priority in this free agency, a.k.a. if somebody's going to get paid at their highest market value, we're absolutely going to be in the mix in the bidding for him. So they've let people know that he is a top priority for them in free agency. That could be enough to get a deal done.
It's a crowded marketplace, safety, isn't it? I mean, there are a few safeties out there. I don't think any of them are as good as CJGJ, though. And then you have a few coming into the draft if you want to cast your lot there that are pretty good. He's 25 years old. I mean, that's the kind of profile player you want, a guy that's still very young, who you would assume is ascending. I'm not sure he's hit his ceiling yet. Plus, he has that versatility of being able to play in the slot or back at safety. I mean, he proved that this year. It wouldn't be cheap to keep him. I think he's still like a $17 million a year player, and that's too rich for the Eagles. I thought maybe they would try to give him 15 a year, kind of like a deal what they gave with Hassan Reddick last year, a 3-year, $15 million per season contract. I would try that. I mean, maybe that would do it, or 4 years, $60 million, takes him up to 29, gives him a second, another bite at the apple in his late 20s. But it's going to cost a lot. I mean, CJ's not going to go off the market cheaply. He's not going to give the Eagles any discount, even though he liked being here. I think he's going to find a big deal somewhere, and I don't think it's going to be in Philadelphia.
All right, let's go from CJ to TJ, Ed, because the rumors are already swirling with TJ Edwards. Giants, a bunch of Giants people are speculating that New York is going to come at TJ hard. Some Chicago people, Jody and I were talking about that team. Not a big fan of the general manager there. They might go hard. The Jonathan Gannon aspect is obvious. Arizona. But the Giants with Brandon Brown, remember Howie was really upset losing Brandon Brown, more so than Ian Cunningham when you go back a couple of years, because Ian went to the Bears out of the division. Brandon went in the division, and now, he was one of those guys responsible for unearthing TJ Edwards. You think there's more than smoke? Is that going to turn into fire?
Well, I mean, he's going to be sought after, I would think. I mean, even keep an eye on Cleveland, right? I mean, with Jim Schwartz out there, you never know who he's going to be looking to poach. But I think you're going to lose TJ, and it's a shame, because if you're Howie Roseman, you're looking at your roster and you're looking at linebacker, and you're like, okay, let's see. You're rubbing your hands together. Nakobe Dean played 34 snaps last year. Who else do we have? Oh, nobody.
Wait, are you just forgetting Sean Bradley? You had no chance to step in and play for the Eagles this year?
Well,
Temple disrespect out of you, Ed Kracz.
Remember DJ Elliott, former Temple. He wasn't there with
Temple up and down the staff now these days.
But he wasn't there with Sean.
No, I mean, look, Sean's a nice guy, good player, good special teams player. I'm not sure he's a guy you want to pin your hopes on. I mean, I would probably put Davion Taylor even ahead of Sean Bradley in the starting mix.
And by the way, DJ Elliott coached Davion Taylor in Colorado.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and listen, Davion, it's his third year now. I think he's been here 3 years. So he's got to have developed during that time, right? Remember, he came in raw because he didn't play any high school football. He went to a community college before. So you would think over the 3 years in Philadelphia, he will have developed. But then the other side of that is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Just when it looks like he's going to take a step and become, a key member of a defense, he something happens, an injury pops up. So I'm not sure you can rely on Davion Taylor either. You can put him in the mix. You can put Sean Bradley in the mix. But, I think I'd rather pin my hopes on someone.
No, I'm not. I don't disagree with that, Ed, because Davion, people forget, he was showing some things, but then all of a sudden the Eagles got some linebackers. They got Kaiser White, they signed, and they drafted Nakobe Dean, and all of a sudden, well, there's not a spot for him. But now if you lose TJ, if you lose Kaiser, all you have is Nakobe. Now there's a spot for him again. Now they'll add some bodies. I'm not going to say that's going to be the plan. They're not going to hand him something, but I do think he's got an opportunity if TJ leaves. Maybe that opens up a door a little bit. But that's a tough loss from the perspective of, the Eagles developed him. That's a great story. 9th on the depth chart, can't run, can't do this, can't. And they turn him into one of the best linebackers in football, and then they lose him because they don't value the linebacker position.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone through. I mean, we've seen it past years. The L.J. Forts, Corey Nelson, Warlow, guys they bring in on one-year deals. Now, Kaiser White worked out, and listen, I think they have a better chance of bringing Kaiser White back because he won't be, as expensive as TJ Edwards. So I think Kaiser White has a chance to be one of those guys that comes back. I don't know what his deal would look like. Had a nice season, always gives 110% effort out there. But they do need linebackers, and you're probably going to lose TJ Edwards. And you'd hate, if you're an Eagles fan, you'd hate to see him go, up the turnpike to the New York Giants and have to, see him twice a year. But I think
57 in blue, stopping Boston Scott. Oh, we don't want to see that.
If it gets near the goal line, Boston Scott's getting in.
Yeah,
even against TJ Edwards, he cannot be stopped against.
I think the Giants should sign Boston Scott. Sign him.
You'd think, just to get him out of their hair, right? Put him on your team. But TJ Edwards would make a lot of sense in New York. He'd make a lot of sense in Arizona, Cleveland, wherever else you want to look. He's just a very good instinctive football player. A little limited in coverage, but that's okay because he's good at diagnosing plays. And like you said, he's sets the defense, right? He wears the green dot in his helmet, so he's the one relaying the plays from the sidelines. Be a big loss, but listen, there's going to be big losses. We go into the free agency period knowing that, and I think TJ is going to be one of them. They're just not going to keep him. Now they could bring back Kaiser White. We'll see. I think they probably will try to bring Kaiser back.
All right, then let me follow up there where Ed kind of took us, but I'll make him go officially through the door. The latest, and this is an ever-changing thing, teams' rankings in cap space in the league. Even after adding DJ Moore at $20 million per, the Bears still have more money than anybody else to spend this offseason, over $75 million. Falcons second at 62, Raiders third at 43, Bengals fourth at 33, Arizona Cardinals fifth at $32 million, coached by Jonathan Gannon, can absolutely use an upgrade on the defensive side of the ball. Which Eagle defensive free agent is most likely to land in Arizona?
Well, I think it could be Hargrave. They need help at the defensive tackle spot. And like you said, they have money to spend. And, having money to spend isn't always a good thing. We rarely see teams that win free agency win enough games to make it to the playoffs. I mean, free agency is kind of meant to be kind of, a fill in the blank. You need a guy here. Okay, let's try this guy. But you have to build internally successfully in order to have success on the field. And, you can spend all that money you want. And I guess the Jags did it last year. They spent a lot of money and they ended up winning a playoff game. But I think Javon Hargrave is probably the guy that's going to go to Arizona to play with Jonathan Gannon, and it's going to cost a lot. We saw Daron Payne, the Commanders D tackle, paid a ton of money yesterday. So everybody scoffs at the possibility that Hargrave will get $20 million. I don't think so. I mean, I know he's 30 years old, which, you know, he's coming to that point in his career now where, you know, you really have to make sure you're taking care of your body. But Hargrave does, and he's a good player, and he's a quiet leader. People in the locker room, teammates in the locker room really like Javon Hargrave. Another big loss for the Eagles, but I think he'll probably end up with Arizona. And I'm not sure about TJ in Arizona. I'm not sure. I mean, they have Isaiah Simmons down there, right? They don't know what to do with him, whether he's a linebacker or a safety, so they got to figure that out. But I think the most likely candidate to be a Cardinal is Javon Hargrave.
Agreed.
By the way, for your cap updating, Jody, the Browns have restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. Guess how much space,
really? 1 year in, they've already restructured it.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
Guess how much space they got for restructuring that deal? Just give me a number. Guess. Throw a number out there.
25 mil?
36 million.
Oh.
36 stinking million. Just from redoing that deal. So it's nice to have a rich owner, Jimmy Haslam. Very well off.
Turn it into a signing bonus and pay him immediately. And
it'll
make the general manager's job easier. Yes.
That puts them that makes them players now with Jim Schwartz there, right? I mean, he could come hard after a TJ.
And that's where I was going. Fletcher Cox. We got one, Ed. Brandon Graham coming back on a team-friendly deal. I agree with you. I was texting the GM yesterday. He gave $20 million out as a potential for Javon Hargrave. If you lose Javon, can you afford to lose Fletcher? And how much you want to pay Fletcher at this stage of his career? I mean, made $14 million. I think people look at him and say he's not a $14 million player anymore. But I also don't think he's coming back for Brandon Graham money. Can you afford to lose both Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox?
Well, again, if you're Howie, you're looking at your roster and you're seeing, okay, who do I have there if I lose both these starting tackles? You know, you have Jordan Davis, who, you know, what did he do as a rookie? He didn't have to do much, but, you know, you better be fully confident that he's ready to step up into a, you know, 50 snap per game load or 60 snaps per game.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't, but who are you looking at here? You're looking at
Milton Williams, Milton and Marlon Tuipulotu.
Right.
How about Marlon?
Those are you guys. Marvin Wilson, maybe, who had, you know, a cameo down there in Houston. Didn't play as well as the team would have liked, or they wouldn't have gone out and signed Linval.
They got on the phone pretty quick after they got a look at Marvin.
Yeah, they did. You wonder if Linval would come back and play, you know, at kind of a 35-year-old money, whatever that looks like, a team that maybe he can win a Super Bowl with still. Does he want to even come to training camp, Linval Joseph, at this point? I don't know. Yeah. But, you know, I would look at him and I would say, okay, let's see what we can do. Maybe we can get him back. But, yeah, losing Cox, that's a big loss in the locker room. I mean, Cox does more than just what we see on the field. It's also what he brings inside the locker room, which is a good presence, a good leadership, intangible there. Graham gives you that as well. Kelsey's coming back probably. That's two of your guys. So I think they'll probably move on from Fletch unless he's willing to take like $7 million for the season, and I'm not sure he would. I think he'll get more. I don't know if I'd go higher than maybe 8 or 9 for Fletch and hope that he comes back because, you know, he's an all-time Eagle, right? He's been here his whole career. But he strikes me as the type of player that wants to see what else is out there and might be looking for a fresh start somewhere. Maybe I know him and Brandon are close. They've dressed next to each other in the locker room for their entire careers. But I something tells me he just wants to see and go to another situation. And you know, you mentioned the Browns, maybe Arizona. He's a great locker room guy, and you hate to lose those kinds of players.
And Jim loves him. I don't know how much power he's got out there, but Jim loves Fletch, so that would make sense.
All right, we've been kicking this around leading up to legal tampering, which now starts in 3 hours and 15 minutes. But some of the conversations about the Eagles for the entire offseason leading up to week number 1 next year need to be tabled because they're not as big a priority. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be addressed. So I'm going to ask you to address a position, Ed Kracz. I'm not even going to ask you to name a guy. I'm going to ask you to name a position for him or a way of acquiring a player. Wide receiver 3 on the Philadelphia Eagles opening day next year will be Quez Watkins, someone who was on the Eagles this past year, not named Quez Watkins, someone who was on another team this year that they'll bring as a free agent, or someone they draft in the NFL draft in April. You don't, Quez is the only name that's there. If you want to affix any other name for any of the other categories, feel free, but tell me where you think the Eagles wide receiver 3 is going to be coming from starting the season next year.
Well, you didn't mention Britton Covey, and I won't either. But
Ed Kracz doing jokes. It's almost like Howie Roseman. Nice try there, big guy.
Yeah, thanks. But I'm going to go Quez Watkins. I think he'll be the third guy.
He'll be the guy, huh?
I think he'll be the guy. I think the Eagles will. Maybe they'll try to bring Zach Pascal back on a 1-year deal. It could be Zach Pascal, maybe. But I think Quez, showed some. I mean, Nick Sirianni raved about him after last year, saying he's a number 2 receiver, whatever. But, they like him. Maybe they didn't like him as much this year, but I still think it'll be Quez. He still has a year left on his deal at a relatively cheap number, a 6th-round pick number. Maybe they'll try to get Adam Thielen, maybe, upgrade there a little bit, depending on what he costs, depending on if he'll come to Philadelphia to play with Jalen Hurts. I think you're going to see some receivers that'll want to come to Philadelphia to play for a team that can challenge for a Super Bowl and play with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. But I just think it's going to be Quez Watkins. I don't think you're going to find a trade partner. I know there's been talk about trading him. I don't know why you would trade for Quez Watkins. I know it's not a great wide receiver class this year. So
it's not great on free agency. That's my concern either with a guy like Thielen. He's going to get paid because there are no receivers out there. So
I think it'll be Quez.
Yeah, 2nd or 3rd base if they want to bring somebody in more than right away at 3rd receiver. I'll leave it here with you, Ed. Follow Ed on Twitter at KratzE, SI.com/NFL/Eagles for all your legal tampering news. Miles Sanders. He seems to be a guy who everyone pretty much is just defaulting towards they're going to lose. Do the Eagles even want Miles Sanders back, number 1? And number 2, if they do, is there a path to where they can get him back?
Well, they would take Miles Sanders back, but it's going to be at their number, and I don't think it's going to be a number that Miles is going to like. And I think there will be some interest in Miles. But again, like we've talked about, it's a loaded class coming in with the draft at running back. And there's some free agents out there that people are going to look at, other teams are going to look at. So we'll see how his market develops. He may take a 1-year deal to come back to Philadelphia. It wouldn't make him happy. He wants some long-term assurance here, and he's a guy that has battled injury in the past. We saw him play through injury this year because it was a contract year. We saw him battle through a knee. He had a hand injury, I think, in the Super Bowl. So the Eagles would like to bring him back, but it's going to be at their number. But we'll see how the market develops. I'd go out and take Bijan Robinson, number 10.
Bijan, number 10.
Pack my offense, load my offense up, and just outscore teams.
I'd go find Isaiah Pacheco. Daniel Jeremiah told us there were 13 running backs with at least a 3rd-round grade. That means you could find a starting level running back in the 4th or 5th round. Now, the Eagles don't have a 4th or 5th round pick right now, but you know how he's going to add. If they can find an Isaiah Pacheco type, go out and find that guy.
It's easier said than done, right? I mean, everybody can say go out and find Isaiah Pacheco, but that's not easy to do. I mean, they tried it with Bryce. What was that? Bryce Brown back in 2013, a 7th round.
Janelle Pumphrey. would be.
Denell Pumphrey was a 4th-round guy.
You don't want me bringing that name up, McMullen. That's not going to evoke good memories for me.
But behind this offensive line, with that quarterback, I think Ed Kracz might get 970 yards behind that group. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not as optimistic as you about that, but I would go out and get the cream of the crop. Go out and get Bijan Robinson. Now, I like Jahmyr Gibbs. That he can catch the ball. He doesn't have that tread on the tire. That's the thing about Bijan is he's carried the ball a lot at Texas. And running backs all have that shelf life. Jahmyr Gibbs does not have that level of action that Robinson has. And I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot too. And you could probably get him later. But if you're the Eagles and you want to draft a running back, you can't wait till day 3 because you don't have any picks until the 7th round. So
yeah, but they're going to get one. They're going to have a pick in the 4th, 5th, or 6th by the end of day 1 because Howie's going to trade down, whether it's at 10, whether it's at 30. He's going to add picks. We know that. We know.
Hopefully that is the case. Eddie Kracz, it's always good to see you. Even though we were a little disappointed in your 10, we're living vicariously through you as you get to go to Florida. McMullen and I don't get to go to Disney anymore. We ain't kids that take us down there.
Did you pick me up my Mickey Mouse ears, though?
Those Mickey Mouse ears aren't cheap. I'll tell you.
Oh, good for you. Make him pay if he wants them. Exactly right. No. Great stuff. We'll get you back up in the next couple of weeks.
I asked Ed to bring me back something. I assume he didn't know. We can't talk about that on.
Did you? I know we got to go, but your kids get into the stupid pins.
Yes,
man, how much money I spent over the years on those stupid pins in Disney for my daughter. What a royal waste of money.
She doesn't use them? I know that.
You couldn't find them in this house. They're in this house somewhere. Oh, I guarantee you that. They didn't move out when she moved out. They're still in this house, and I know how much I paid for them. But it's a year and done in a fad and goes into a drawer or a closet somewhere.
Well, see, they put them on their backpacks. They get the lanyard. They have a little cork board that they pin them on. And
my daughter's still wearing a backpack to work. I guarantee you there are no Disney pins on it at age 27. Not happening. But I paid for years for that stuff. Stop with the whining, McDonald. I just want to say thank you, Ed Kracz, for coming on, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks, bud.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Eddie K. Special K from Sports Illustrated here with us on Birds 365. All right, the countdown is on. Just over 3 hours. McMullen McDonald coming back.